Okay, picture this. July 20th, 1969. Over 650 million people around the globe are glued to their TVs, watching a single dusty footstep onto another world. It was humanity's absolute greatest triumph. Or was it? Because for decades now, there's been this shadow lingering over the Apollo 11 mission, this nagging whisper that the whole thing was just one giant lie. Today, we're gonna dig in and separate the hard facts from the fiction. So let's just ask it outright. Was the moon landing a hoax? I mean, that's the big question, right? It's the heart of one of the most persistent conspiracy theories ever. Did NASA, in a desperate race against the Soviets, fake the entire thing on some secret soundstage? Well, to get to the truth, we've got to look at the claims, the incredible pressure of the times, and the absolutely terrifying reality of what it took to get there. You've heard these ones before, I'm sure. The American flag that looks like it's waving in the windless vacuum of space. The photos where the sky is pitch black, but there are no stars. And the shadows that just look off. These are the big three, the cornerstones of the whole hoax theory. And don't worry, we are absolutely going to tackle every single one. But to do that, first, we need to rewind the clock. You see, the story of the moon landing, it doesn't actually start with a rocket. It starts with a massive global power struggle. After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union were locked in the Cold War. It was this intense battle for technological dominance, for ideological supremacy. And the final frontier, the ultimate high ground, was space. And in this race, let's be honest, America was losing badly. The Soviets were hitting every major milestone first. They got the first satellite into orbit with Sputnik in '57, and then they put the first human in space, Yuri Gagarin, in 1961. For the US, this string of second-place finishes wasn't just a little disappointing, it was a full-blown national embarrassment. Something huge, something drastic had to be done. And that is where President John F. Kennedy steps onto this stage. He knew that America didn't just need to catch up, it needed a goal so massive, so unbelievably ambitious, that it would completely leapfrog the Soviets and rally the entire country. He wasn't playing for second place. He wanted to win the whole race in one spectacular, mind-blowing leap. And I want you to just stop and think about how audacious that was. When Kennedy made this promise, the entire American space program had a grand total of about 15 minutes of human spaceflight experience. That's it. They didn't have the rockets, they didn't have the computers, they barely had a clue how to do it. So this quote, it wasn't just a goal, it was a nearly impossible challenge thrown down in front of the entire planet. But turning this incredible dream into a reality, well, that was going to be anything but easy. The road to the moon was paved with unimaginable dangers, with gut-wrenching setbacks. And the cost of reaching for the stars was tragically, painfully real. And tragically, the Apollo program suffered this devastating blow before a single mission even left the ground. During a routine test on the launch pad, a fire broke out inside of the Apollo 1 command module, and the three-man crew, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, was lost. It was just this horrific reminder that they were operating on the absolute bleeding edge of what was possible, where the tiniest mistake could be fatal. Now here's where it gets really clever. The plan for how to actually do it, called the Lunar Orbit Rendezvous, was both genius and incredibly risky. See, instead of one giant spaceship landing on the moon, they'd send a mothership to orbit the moon, and then this small, fragile little lander, the lunar module, would detach, ferry two astronauts down to the surface, and then fly back up to reconnect. It was a brilliant way to save weight, but it meant doing these incredibly precise dockings in deep space where there was absolutely zero margin for error. So before they attempted the real deal with Apollo 11, they needed one last full-on dress rehearsal. That mission was Apollo 10. They did literally everything Apollo 11 was going to do, except for the actual landing part. The crew took their lunar module, which they nicknamed Snoopy, all the way down to just 9 miles above the surface of the moon. But get this, even the dress rehearsal almost ended in total disaster. As the crew got ready to fire the engine to go back up, a switch was in the wrong position, and the module just started tumbling, spinning wildly out of control. It was only the commander's lightning-fast reflexes that saved them, getting the craft back under control with just seconds to spare before it crashed. It just goes to show you how dangerous every single step of this mission really was. Okay, so 2 months later, it was time. The real thing. Apollo 11. But the final descent to the lunar surface would turn into the most stressful, nail-biting 12 minutes in the history of exploration. pushing both the astronauts and their machine to the absolute breaking point. So as the lunar module, the Eagle, is coming down, pretty much everything that can go wrong does. First, these program alarms, codes 1201 and 1202, start flashing. The guidance computer is completely overloaded. At the exact same time, Neil Armstrong looks out the window and realizes they're coming in way too fast. They've overshot their landing zone and are heading straight for a massive crater filled with dangerous boulders. With the computer just screaming at him, Armstrong has no choice. He takes manual control, flying the Eagle like a helicopter, skimming over the surface, desperately hunting for a safe place to land. And right then, a voice crackles from Mission Control with the chilling update. 60 seconds. They had 1 minute of fuel left to either land or abort the entire mission. And literally, the entire world just held its breath. The countdown kept going, 30 seconds. And then, through the static, a voice came through, impossibly calm and steady, with some of the most famous words ever spoken. The tension just shattered. In Mission Control, in living rooms all across the planet, there was this massive explosion of pure relief and joy. They had made it, but just barely. When the Eagle finally settled down in the Sea of Tranquility, it had less than 15 seconds of fuel left in the tank. Think about that. A mere 15 seconds stood between one of history's greatest triumphs and a mission-ending catastrophic failure. Okay, so knowing all that, the immense risk, the tragic human cost, the near disasters they barely survived, let's circle all the way back to those first questions. Does it really seem more likely that they faked all of this rather than that they actually pulled it off? Let's look at the actual evidence. All right, let's break these down one by one. First up, the waving flag. The claim is it's waving in the wind, but there's no wind in a vacuum. The reality? Look closer. There's a horizontal rod running along the top to hold it open. That rod got a little jammed, which created that permanent ripple. The only time it waves is when the astronauts are physically wiggling and twisting the pole to plant it in the ground. It's not wind, it's just basic physics. Okay, next, the missing stars. The sky in the photos is jet black, but totally empty. That does seem weird, right? But it's just photography 101. The lunar surface and those white spacesuits are incredibly bright in the direct sunlight. So to take a good picture, the camera settings had to be for a very bright scene. A small aperture, a fast shutter speed. Those settings are way too fast to capture the faint light of distant stars. It's the exact same reason you don't see stars in photos taken during the daytime here on Earth. And finally, the funky shadows. People point out that the shadows aren't perfectly parallel, which must mean there were multiple lights, like on a movie set. But the moon's surface isn't a flat studio floor. It's this bumpy, uneven landscape of craters and hills and dust. That lumpy ground, combined with a wide-angle camera lens, creates perspective distortions that make shadows from a single light source, the sun, look like they're going in all sorts of different directions. But, you know, if you need the one single definitive piece of proof, it has nothing to do with physics and everything to do with politics. America's #1 rival, the Soviet Union, was tracking the Apollo 11 spacecraft with its own incredibly advanced deep space network. They were listening in the entire way. Exposing an American moon landing hoax would have been the single greatest propaganda victory of the entire Cold War, and yet they didn't say a peep. In fact, they publicly acknowledged the American success. Why? Because they knew it was real. And here's the other thing people always seem to forget. Apollo 11 wasn't some one-off stunt. It was just the first of 6 successful moon landings. A total of 12 American astronauts walked on the moon between 1969 and 1972. I mean, faking it once would have been an incredible feat, but faking it 5 more times, with the entire world watching ever more closely, that's just beyond belief. The story of Apollo isn't the story of a conspiracy. It's the story of a nation that, when faced with a truly impossible challenge, rose to the occasion with breathtaking ingenuity, courage, and sheer force of will. And maybe the real question we should be asking isn't did we go, but instead, if we could achieve something that incredible with computers less powerful than the phone in your pocket, why haven't we been back? Now that is a question worth thinking about.